3 seconds. That's all I had before Travis's eyes found me across the ballroom. The chandeliers glittered above me, but my chest felt like a cage tightening with every breath. I had promised myself I'd never be caught in his orbit again. Not after the lies. Not after the way he laughed when I begged him not to humiliate me. And yet, there he was. The man who once swore I was his forever, now striding through the crowd like he still owned me. 1. His gaze swept the room. 2. His lips curled into that smug, poisonous smile. 3. His hand lifted, ready to wave me over like a servant. No, not again. I turned, desperate, searching for any escape, and my eyes landed on him. A tall stranger in a charcoal suit, posture unshakable, eyes like storm clouds watching the crowd with detached boredom. He didn't belong to anyone, and maybe for a heartbeat, neither did I. Before I could think, I moved. My heels clicked once, twice, and then my hands were on his lapel. I rose on Tito and pressed my lips against his. The world gasped. I heard it. Glasses pausing midair, whispers spreading like fire. His body stilled against mine. For half a breath, I thought I had just ruined everything, until I felt his arms slide, firm and deliberate, around my waist. His lips didn't exactly kiss back, but they lingered just long enough to make it real. When I pulled away, my pulse thundered so hard, I thought the whole ballroom could hear it. And then I saw his face. Anthony Pierce, billionaire, the man whose empire owned half the skyline, a name I had only ever read in headlines, and I had just kissed him. The whispers spread faster than wildfire. Is that Anthony Pierce? Who's the woman? Oh my God, did you see that kiss? Every gaze in the ballroom pierced my skin. My pulse was hammering, but it wasn't Travis's smirk I felt anymore. It was the stranger's hand, still steady on my waist. Anthony Pierce didn't flinch. His eyes swept the crowd once, like a king surveying his kingdom. Then he leaned down just enough for only me to hear. Smile, unless you want them to eat you alive. I blinked up at him, stunned. What? But his hand pressed lightly at the small of my back, guiding me toward the champagne table. To the room, it must have looked effortless. To me, it felt like a performance I hadn't rehearsed. Care to explain why you kissed me? His voice was calm, but there was an edge under it, sharp, dangerous. I had 3 seconds, I whispered back. My ex was coming, I panicked. Travis Blake. His tone dropped, like he already knew the answer. I stiffened. How do you... Anthony's lips curved, not into a smile, but something colder. Men like him are predictable. I've seen his type before. I should have walked away right then. I should have untangled myself from his arm, apologized, vanished into the crowd. But Travis was still watching us like a hawk. My skin burned under the weight of his stare. And then Anthony did something I didn't expect. He turned to Travis, raised his glass, and with the faintest smirk said, "Excuse us." The power shift was immediate. Travis's face darkened. For the first time in years, he wasn't the one controlling the room. My heart stuttered. Anthony led me out onto the terrace where the night air was cool against my burning cheeks. Finally, I pulled back. "I'm sorry," I blurted. "I didn't mean to drag you into..." "Don't apologize." His voice was calm, steady. "You gave them something better to talk about than me." I frowned. "Better? You're Anthony Pierce. You own the headlines." "Exactly. And you're?" "Chloe," I said softly. "Chloe, right now I need a distraction. You need protection. Seems mutually beneficial." I stared. "You're suggesting?" "A deal." He took a step closer, shadows from the ballroom light catching the hard angles of his jaw. "We let them believe this, you and me. Dating." I almost laughed. Almost. "That's insane. We don't even know each other." His expression didn't waver. "We don't have to. All that matters is that they believe it." I shook my head, breathless. "And what if they don't?" "Then you'll walk away humiliated, and I'll be left answering questions I don't want to answer. But if we do this right," his eyes flicked down to my lips, then back up again, "we both win." The air between us tightened. My heart was pounding, every instinct screaming at me to refuse, to run. But behind the glass doors, I saw Travis scowling, humiliated, for once not holding the power, and the thought of that was delicious. I exhaled slowly. Fine. One condition. Anthony arched a brow. This stays fake. Nothing real. For the first time, his lips twitched into something almost like a smile. Agreed. We shook hands under the stars, sealing a pact that felt like a dangerous game. A game I wasn't sure I'd survive. The city lights glittered below the terrace like spilled diamonds, but I couldn't breathe them in. Not with Anthony Pierce standing so close, his presence too sharp, too steady, like the air bent around him. Rules, he said simply, as if we were signing a contract. We'll need them. I folded my arms across my chest, a pathetic shield. You sound like you've done this before. I haven't, he replied, his tone clipped. But I don't make deals without boundaries. I laughed under my breath, dry and humorless. You call this a deal? You're asking me to fake date a man whose face is on every financial magazine in America. That's not a deal. It's a death sentence. His gaze slid over me, cool but not cruel. If you're afraid of attention, you shouldn't have kissed me. Heat shot up my neck. I told you, I was desperate. Yes, he murmured, eyes narrowing ever so slightly. And I think we both know desperation makes people reckless. So rules. His authority was infuriating, but the worst part, he was right. I lifted my chin. Fine. Number 1, this stays fake. No feelings, no lines blurred. His mouth curved, the faintest flicker of amusement. You're assuming I'd want that complication. Do you? I shot back. For a moment, silence stretched. Then his voice dropped, low and sure. No, I don't. The firmness in his tone should have reassured me. Instead, it left a hollow ache in my chest. I forced myself to keep going. Number 2, no lies between us. If we're putting on a show, I need to know what you're planning. Anthony nodded once. Fair. Then number 3, when I call, you answer. If this is going to work, we present a united front. That means showing up even when you don't want to. The command in his voice grated against every raw nerve I had left. You don't get to control me, I snapped. I don't want to control you. His eyes caught mine, unflinching. I want this to be convincing. That's the only way either of us walks away intact. My throat tightened. For years, Travis had dictated my choices, chipped away at who I was, until I barely recognized myself. The idea of another man setting rules, it clawed at my skin. Anthony's gaze softened just a fraction, like he'd seen the storm inside me, but he didn't call it out, he didn't press. Instead, he extended his hand again, just like before. Do we have a deal, Chloe? I stared at his hand, my pulse loud in my ears. This was supposed to be fake, temporary, nothing real. But why did it already feel like the first choice I'd made in years that actually belonged to me? Slowly, I slipped my hand into his. Yes, I whispered, we have a deal. And for one reckless moment, I let myself wonder what it might cost me. The photographs hit the tabloids within 24 hours. Anthony Pierce's new mystery woman. Who is she? The kiss seen around Manhattan. By the time I stepped out of the cab in front of Le Jardin, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, I already felt their eyes on me, paparazzi lenses glinting in the dark like 1,000 tiny spotlights. My hands trembled as I smoothed down the simple black dress Anthony's assistant had sent me earlier that afternoon. I hated that I had accepted it, hated more that it fit perfectly, as if he already knew my size. And then he stepped out of his car. Anthony didn't just arrive, he commanded the street. Tailored suit, clean lines, presence so magnetic the cameras couldn't look away. He offered his arm like it was second nature, like he had done it 1,000 times. "Relax," he murmured when I hesitated. His voice was low, steady. "The cameras can smell fear." I bit back a sharp laugh. What am I supposed to do? Purr for them? For the first time since I'd met him, I saw something shift in his eyes. Amusement. "Maybe," he said, lips curving just enough for only me to notice. I looped my arm through his, my pulse skipping. Heat pooled under my skin, ridiculous and reckless. This wasn't real. This was performance. Inside, the restaurant buzzed with whispers. Heads turned. I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall. Chloe Donovan, walking beside a man whose net worth probably had more zeros than I could count. Anthony led me to the table with practiced ease. To everyone else, we must have looked perfectly choreographed. To me, it felt like balancing on a knife's edge. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered once we were seated, menus acting as shields. "Because the press will focus on you, not me. And right now, I prefer it that way." I narrowed my eyes. "You're using me." "And you're using me," he countered, tone flat. "Your ex hasn't stopped staring at the headlines since last night. Tell me you didn't enjoy that." My cheeks burned. I hated that how right he was. Dinner passed in a blur of polite smiles and deliberate gestures. His hand brushing mine when passing the wine, my laugh tilting just a little too loud. Each movement felt staged, and yet underneath, something real hummed. The moment it hit me was small, stupid. A joke I muttered under my breath about the pretentious menu. Do they charge extra for vowels? And Anthony, the untouchable billionaire, actually laughed. Quiet. Low, but genuine. For one heartbeat, the cameras, the whispers, the deal, we both forgot them. And then, the flashbulbs outside went off again, dragging us back into the game. But that laugh, it stayed with me. Long after the dinner ended, long after we posed for the photographers, long after he placed his hand lightly on the small of my back and guided me into the waiting car. It lingered. Dangerous. Real. Anthony's penthouse was all glass and steel. The skyline stretched out like a crown of light. It should have felt intimidating, untouchable, just like him. But when the elevator doors slid open and I followed him inside, the silence was louder than the city below. He tossed his jacket across a chair, loosened his tie with one sharp tug, and crossed to the bar. "Drink?" I shook my head, arms tight across my chest. "No, I don't exactly feel like celebrating." His jaw flexed, but he poured himself a whiskey anyway. The amber liquid caught the light as he lifted it, staring into the glass like it might give him answers. "You hate this," he said finally. I flinched at the bluntness. What gave it away? The deer in headlights look, or the fact that my stomach's still in knots from the paparazzi flashing cameras in my face? His gaze flicked to me, sharp, assessing. And then, softer. "It doesn't get easier." I blinked. "What?" He set the glass down, untouched. For the first time, he didn't look like Anthony Pierce, billionaire, the man who controlled rooms with a glance. He looked tired. He murmured, "They don't care who you are. They care about the story. And they'll twist it until it bleeds." The words hit harder than I expected. He wasn't warning me. He was confessing. "Is that what happened to you?" I asked quietly. He turned away, shoulders tense. For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came low, steady, almost too calm. "The last woman I let in, she sold me, piece by piece. Private dinners, phone calls, even the way I sleep, printed on glossy covers for strangers to gawk at. I learned my lesson. Something inside me twisted. For all his arrogance, for all his iron walls, there it was, the wound. Raw, bleeding, hidden beneath all that steel. I stepped closer before I realized it, my hand brushing against his sleeve. "Anthony," he stilled, not looking at me, but not pulling away either. I wanted to tell him I understood, that I knew what it felt like to be betrayed by someone who promised forever, to be left humiliated, your pain turned into someone else's entertainment. But the words stuck in my throat. So instead, I reached for his cuff. "You're terrible at this," I said softly. "Here." His brow furrowed as I straightened the cufflink he'd left undone. My fingers brushed his wrist, warm against cool skin. The smallest touch, but the silence stretched around it, thick, charged. When I glanced up, his eyes were already on me, dark, searching. The air shifted, my pulse thundered. His hand twitched like he might cover mine. For one reckless second, the world tilted towards something inevitable. And then, he stepped back. "Don't mistake this for something it's not," he said, voice clipped, armor snapping back into place. The sting was sharp, immediate. I let my hand fall, forcing a laugh that didn't reach my chest. Believe me, I won't. But as I turned away, pretending not to care, one truth burned through me like fire. I already had. The gala buzzed like a hive, champagne flutes clinking, cameras flashing, the air thick with perfume and envy. I hated every second of it, but Anthony's hand was steady at the small of my back, guiding me through the glittering crowd as though I belonged there. Until Travis appeared. He blocked my path with that same smug smile I once mistook for charm. "Chloe," he drawled, drawing out my name for the crowd around us. "Didn't expect to see you here, though I should have guessed. You've always had a talent for trading up." The words sliced through me, sharp and deliberate. Heads turned, whispers spread, my face burned. I opened my mouth, desperate to defend myself, but Anthony was faster. "She didn't trade up," he said, his voice like steel cutting through silk. She finally stopped wasting her time on someone beneath her. The entire room stilled. Travis's smirk faltered. "Excuse me?" Anthony's hand slid firmly round my waist, pulling me just close enough to leave no doubt. His gaze locked on Travis with a calm, lethal precision. "You heard me." The power shifted instantly. The whispers weren't cruel anymore. They were odd, curious, even approving. For the first time in years, I wasn't shrinking under Travis's shadow. I was standing beside someone who refused to let me be small. And God help me, it felt intoxicating. Travis's jaw tightened, but he forced a laugh. "We'll see how long this lasts. Pierce doesn't keep things long-term." The jab was meant to sting Anthony, but it hit me instead. My heart lurched. Was Travis right? Anthony didn't flinch. He simply led me away, leaving Travis in our wake, the crowd buzzing in our trail. Once we reached the quiet of the balcony, I turned on him, breath sharp in my chest. "Why did you do that?" He tilted his head. "Because he deserved it." "No!" My voice cracked, raw. "You didn't just defend me. You claimed me in front of everyone." His expression didn't change. Too calm, too unreadable. "That's the role, Chloe." We agreed to be convincing. The words were ice, pouring over the fire that had sparked in me. "Convincing?" I repeated, the taste bitter. My heart ached at how easily he dismissed it, how quickly he folded my first real moment of being chosen into nothing but strategy. He stepped closer, shadows cutting across his face. "Don't confuse this for something it isn't." I swallowed hard, trying to hold myself together. But inside, I was unraveling.
Because what if I already had? I turned away before he could see it, before he could see me. And for the first time, the game we'd started felt less like protection and more like a trap.
The car ride back to Anthony's penthouse was silent, but not empty. The air between us pulsed, thick and restless, like a storm gathering strength. I stared out the window, my reflection fractured by the city lights. My chest was still tight, replaying the moment in the ballroom when Anthony had stood between me and Travis like a shield. For the first time in years, someone had chosen me. And then, just as quickly, he had ripped it away with that one word, convincing. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped inside first, determined not to look at him. But the silence pressed in, unbearable. "Why do you do that?" I burst out. Anthony's brow furrowed. "Do what?" "Save me 1 second and push me away the next. You can't have it both ways." My voice shook, but I didn't stop. "Either this is pretend, or what?" His tone was low, dangerous. "Or, you mean it?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. My breath caught, terrified of what he'd say. The elevator hummed upward, the only sound between us. His eyes burned into mine, and for the first time, I saw something raw break through his perfect control. When the doors opened, I rushed out, my heels sharp against the marble floor. He followed, each step measured, deliberate, until I turned and faced him in the middle of his vast, empty living room. "You can't keep doing this," I said, my voice trembling. "You can't keep pretending it's all for show when I feel—" I stopped, choking on the truth I was too afraid to name. He moved closer, too close, until I had to tilt my chin up to meet his gaze. "Don't," he warned softly, but his hand lifted, fingers brushing my jaw. Light as a whisper. My pulse exploded. Every nerve in my body screamed to close the distance, to give in. His breath mingled with mine, warm, uneven, and for one reckless, fragile second, our lips hovered an inch apart. The almost kiss. Everything in me leaned toward him, everything in him leaned away. And then he pulled back, jaw tight, eyes shuttered. "I can't give you what you're looking for," he said, voice rough. The words sliced deeper than Travis ever had. Because this time, I wanted to believe. I wanted to fight. But I didn't. I stepped back, wrapping my arms around myself like armor. "Then stop pretending you care," I whispered. His silence was louder than any denial. I left him standing there, the city blazing behind his glass walls, and for the first time since the charade began, I wished it had never started at all. The headlines hit like gunshots the next morning. Fake love, Anthony Pierce's sham relationship exposed. Mystery woman revealed. Is Chloe Donovan just another gold digger? My phone buzzed nonstop. Calls, texts, notifications piling faster than I could breathe. Every ping felt like another stone on my chest. I sat frozen on the edge of my bed, staring at the screen. My picture was everywhere. Me laughing beside Anthony at Les Jardins, his hand at the small of my back, the kiss that had started it all. Every image twisted into something ugly, cruel. And then Travis called. I should have ignored it, but my hands, trembling, betrayed me. I answered. His laugh crackled through the line, smug and satisfied. "I warned you, Chloe. Men like Pierce don't keep women around. Did you really think you could fool the world, that you could fool me?" My throat closed. "You did this." "Of course I did," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "You humiliated me, remember? Did you think I'd let you walk away with the last word? Now the whole city knows what you are." Tears burned, but I swallowed them. "You don't know who I am." "Oh, I know exactly who you are," Travis sneered. a desperate woman clinging to a man too powerful to care. And now he'll throw you aside and you'll have nothing, just like before. The line went dead, but the echo of his cruelty lingered. I dropped the phone, my chest heaving. He was right about one thing. I had nothing. The deal was shattered. The whispers had become knives. And Anthony hadn't called. Not once. Maybe Travis was right about that too. Maybe Anthony had already decided I wasn't worth the cost. The thought hollowed me out, because for the first time, I realized I hadn't been pretending anymore, and that made the silence unbearable. I buried my face in my hands, wishing I could disappear, wishing I had never kissed a stranger in a ballroom, because now the whole world was watching me fall. By the time I reached the gala that evening, the whispers had teeth. Cameras clicked like gunfire, reporters shouting questions that sliced through the night. Chloe, were you paid to play Pierce's girlfriend? Anthony, is this another publicity stunt? I wanted to vanish, but Anthony's security ushered me inside. My chest was tight, my pulse frantic. He hadn't called, not once. I had no idea what he planned to say. And then he appeared. Anthony Pierce, flawless in his black suit, stepping onto the stage with the same commanding presence he always carried. But his eyes, when they found mine in the crowd, they weren't cold this time. They were burning. He lifted the microphone. You've all read the headlines. You've seen the photos. You've made your assumptions. The room hushed, the weight of his voice bending it into silence. Yes, Chloe Donovan kissed me first, and yes, we agreed to let you believe we were together. But what you don't know is what I discovered along the way. My throat tightened. He took a breath, his jaw hard, his voice steady but raw. For years, I believed no one could want me for anything but my money. I lived behind walls, certain that if anyone got close, they'd sell me out, and maybe I deserved that. A murmur rippled through the room. But Chloe proved me wrong. She wanted nothing from me. She risked her reputation to protect herself from a man who didn't deserve her. And yes, I used her to protect myself too, but somewhere along the way, his voice faltered, just enough to make my chest ache. I realized I didn't care about the headlines anymore. I didn't care about the business deals or the scrutiny or the lies. The only thing I cared about was her. The room erupted in gasps. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break. He wasn't supposed to say this. Not here, not in front of everyone. But Anthony wasn't done. He set the microphone down with finality, stepped off the stage, and crossed the room with deliberate strides. Every camera turned. Every whisper held its breath. And then he stopped in front of me, his hand outstretched, voice low but carrying. Chloe Donovan, I don't want a deal. I don't want a performance. I want you. The crowd blurred. The cameras disappeared, the whole glittering world fading into nothing but him. And for the first time in my life, I felt chosen. Not for convenience, not for show, for me. The room buzzed, flashes exploding like fireworks, but all I saw was Anthony. His hand still reached for me, steady, unshakable, waiting. I didn't take it. Not yet. Anthony, my voice trembled. If this is still pretend, if you're just saying what they want to hear, then tell me now. Silence pressed in, thick and breathless. His jaw tightened, his eyes searching mine with a desperation I had never seen in him before. The only thing fake, he said at last, voice rough, raw, was my belief that I didn't need anyone, that I didn't need you. My chest broke open, every wall I'd built crumbling at his words. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it was just for me. I need you, Chloe, not as a distraction, not as a shield, as the woman who walked into my life uninvited and made me believe again. Tears burned behind my eyes. My hands shook, but I lifted them anyway, up into his, into the choice I never thought I'd be brave enough to make. The world gasped around us, but it didn't matter, because when Anthony pulled me into his arms, when his lips finally met mine, slow, certain, claiming, it wasn't pretend. It was real, and it was everything. The kiss deepened. Not a performance, not a pact, but a promise. My heart thundered, not with fear, but with the terrifying, beautiful truth. I wasn't running anymore. When we finally broke apart, breathless, his forehead rested against my head. "Say it's real," he whispered. "It's real. God help me, it's real." Applause broke out somewhere in the background, loud, chaotic, meaningless, because in that moment, the world could keep its cameras, its headlines, its cruel whispers. I had him, and he had me, and for the first time in years, that was enough.